For as long as I can remember, the NCAA tournament has been defined by one thing above all else: chaos. It's been built on the single beautiful promise that the impossible isn't just possible, it was expected. We all remember it. We all remember that team from Jersey City, a team called the St. Peter's Peacocks, who had never won an NCAA tournament game before. We remember them staring down the blue blood college of the Kentucky Wildcats and not faltering an inch, ultimately becoming the first ever 15 seed to make the Elite Eight in the tournament. We remember Loyola and Sister Jean, a team that for a better part of a month became national headline worthy. It was the only thing anybody could ever talk about. These weren't just basketball games, these were cultural moments. For decades, the underdog runs are what made the tournament the tournament. They pulled in that casual fan and gave March Madness that unique, electric madness. The belief that anyone from anywhere could do anything. That magic is gone now. The Cinderella story, the very thing that made March Madness special, is dead. And look, I'm not speaking purely off of gut feeling or, my favorite underdog team lost in the tournament the last couple years, and so now I'm upset. It's in the evidence, it's in the system, it's in the way that things are. The rules that have been imposed have made it this way now. It's a massive seismic shift that has completely changed the NCAA tournament and college basketball as a whole forever. So what changed? How did the most predictable event in sports become so predictable? The combination is a perfect storm of a couple things that have completely rewired college basketball. But very quickly, before we get into the rest of this video, if you guys enjoy this type of content, all things hoops, make sure to hit that like button on this video. And if you guys want to stick around, join my community, I would love to have you. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. I'm on the road to 1,000 subscribers, trying to get monetized here on YouTube. And so right now, your support and your subscription means so much to me. But with all that out of the way, let's talk hoops. The first thing, and you could argue is the biggest, is the transfer portal. For generations, the rules were clear. If you transferred to another D1 school, you had to sit out a year. This was a massive deterrent. It made players patient. It made them develop. It's what created those mid-major dynasties. We would see a handful of mid-majors every year sporting a starting lineup of all seniors who have played together for the better part of 4 or 5 years. Maybe not as skilled as all the other blue chip teams, but that teammate chemistry and that bond that they forged over their years together was more than enough to make up for that. Think about that St. Peter's team. They were a veteran group that built themselves up together. Their incredible run was a payoff of a long-term project. Now imagine that team today. The sit-out rule is gone. The NCAA has basically turned into the Wild West. Basically a chaotic free agency marketplace where, as of 2024, a player can transfer to as many teams as they want without ever having to sit out. Under today's rules, how many of those St. Peter's players would have probably left the program to go somewhere else by the time they had a chance to make that run? After a great freshman or sophomore year, a bigger team comes calling and they're leaving without even looking back. We even saw it after they made that historic run. Multiple players were able to transfer to bigger programs because of the recognition that they got from that legendary tournament run. The transfer portal has basically turned mid-major programs into like this de facto development league or development stint before, all those guys go to Power 5 schools. They can still find that raw, untapped talent every once in a while, but there's no way that they can keep them long enough to build something, that's worthy of making a deep run in the tournament. And so if the transfer portal is what opened the door for players to leave, then NIL, the money, is what's pushing them through that door. When NIL was introduced in 2021, the overall goal for it was for players to profit off of their likeness. Before this, you had like literal national stars not having any money. They couldn't get a job. They couldn't have any source of income. And so you have these nationally recognized and nationally loved college stars making $0 off of their likeness, off of their entertainment value. And so the change to NIL was the fix for that. But instead of having the effect of, letting players profit off their likeness, instead it just turned into a system where, all the money and all the best players are going to the highest bidder. And I'm not talking about signing autographs for a couple $1,000 or anything like that. I'm talking about multi-million-dollar deals that are getting thrown at some of these top prospects. Every single year you hear, players transferring to different programs because of, multi-million-dollar deals, or high school players being recruited to certain teams because those teams are willing to throw like $5, $6, $7 million at them. How can a school like St. Peter's, whose entire athletic budget is quite literally a fraction of some of these NIL deals, compete and get, high quality prospects and players? The gap between the haves and the have-nots has always been there in college sports, but the introduction of NIL has blown that gap into like the size of the Grand Canyon. The result of this is a vicious cycle where power schools use NIL to either recruit the best prospects from high school or poach the experienced stars from mid-major schools, constantly resulting in mid-majors having to rebuild year after year because they cannot retain the little talent that they have. They can't hang on to those junior or senior-led teams that are literally the key to a deep Cinderella run. And look, this isn't just a theory. The data from these last couple tournaments is the cold, hard proof that you need. The era of the Cinderella is over. First time since the tournament expanded in 1958, the 2025 tournament Sweet 16 was made up entirely of teams from power conferences. And this wasn't a one-off, because this year's tournament, the same thing happened. For 2 consecutive tournaments now, a true mid-major has not made it past the first weekend of the tournament. Our conference teams aren't just winning anymore, they're literally dominating, using that superior size and depth that they now have to basically just steamroll the rest of the competition. So think about how wild that is, because for the 15 years leading up to the 2024 tournament, it was a lock that an 11th seed or lower would be making the Sweet 16 in that tournament. It was part of the tournament's DNA. We had George Mason in 2006, VCU in 2011, Loyola Chicago in 2018, St. Peter's in 2022. And it shows because when I bring up like George Mason in 2006 or VCU in 2011, this wave of like happiness and nostalgia kind of pours into me, because I remember being a child and watching VCU make that insane run in 2011 and just cheering them on, because it was a team that nobody even like knew, nobody even expected, and it was just a great underdog story. A little bit later now, when I'm older, I still remember the Loyola Chicago or the St. Peter's run, tuning into every single game to see how much farther they can push this like Cinderella crazy unbelievable run. And now that's just a memory. In the 2024 tournament, the lowest seed to make the Sweet 16 was the number 11 seed NC State. In 2025, the lowest seed to make the Sweet 16 was number 10 Arkansas. And so while yes, it might have been fun to watch these 10 or 11 seeds make it to the Sweet 16 or maybe farther, let's not get it twisted. These weren't small mid-major schools going on an insane run. These were power conference teams with the resources playing up to their potential, playing up to, where they should be. And then there's the little guys, the teams from the Sun Belt, teams from the MAC, shout out MACtion, the Missouri Valley. Those teams were all sent packing in the first 1 or 2 games, not even seeing the second weekend of the tournament. And I know what some of you may say, well, in 2026, we had, Iowa make a deep run to the Elite Eight. It was great to see. Or Texas, the number 11 seed, making a pretty deep run as well. But again, it's the same thing as NC State. It's the same thing as Arkansas the years before. These aren't, mid-major schools. These aren't the little guys that nobody's ever heard of before the tournament. No, again, these are teams from power conferences, and it makes it hard when you see that and you're faced with the reality that, these teams have just as much resources as all the other power conference teams and way more than those mid-major teams. It really takes out the novelty and the charm of the underdog story. And I think what proves it is that, if you were following the tournament, if you were following the chatter all over social media or all over the news, nobody was really talking or getting behind Texas and Iowa like they did for St. Peter's and Loyola, because they just didn't have that charm or that true underdog nature that people can get behind. That's what people want. Everybody loves an underdog story. Now, there might be some sick freaks out there that will argue that, well, this is a good thing. We want to watch the best teams play the best teams, go toe-to-toe, and see the best talent come out on top. With only power conference teams and blue bloods advancing, you get the highest quality games in the Elite Eight and in the Final Four that you can possibly get. But even if the games are better, what have we lost in the process? The tournament has lost its soul. March Madness was never about watching the best teams play, and if you think it was, you don't know the point of the tournament. It was the belief that on any given day, the underdog could have its moment. It was the thrill of watching a team you had never heard before go toe-to-toe with one of the best programs in the entire nation. The element of pure, unadulterated chaos is gone. We've traded the unpredictable for the predictable, the magical for the methodical. We've created a system that funnels all the talent and all the money to the top, making it so that a handful of elite programs stay winning year after year after year. The transfer portal, NIL, and the data from the last couple tournaments all point to the same conclusion. The system has changed. It's created an environment where the true mid-major Cinderella run isn't just rare, it might be an impossible anomaly at this point. The path that teams like St. Peter's and Loyola Chicago walked a couple years ago has been washed away. The era of the Blue Bloods is back, and the system is set to keep them there. The tournament is still a spectacle, it's just different now. It's less about the magic of the unknown and more about the coronation of the inevitable. The question we have to ask ourselves is this the March Madness that we still want to watch? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Has the tournament lost its magic, or is basketball better than ever right now? And hey, if you guys made it this far, you obviously enjoyed the video, so make sure to smash that like button on your way out. And again, if you want to stick around, join my community, I would love to have you. Make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And lastly, if you guys want to see any more content from me, YouTube actually thinks this video would be best for you to watch next. So once this video wraps up, make sure to click on that and you can see another piece of great basketball content that I'm sure you're going to enjoy. But that's really all I got for today, guys. So as always, thank you for watching. Peace and love.